The storm arrived without warning. Black clouds swallowed the moon as violent winds tore through the ancient forest, separating human lands from the forbidden Werewolf Kingdom. Horses screamed. Trees snapped in half. Rain crashed like silver blades from the sky. And somewhere in the darkness, a young woman ran for her life. Her cloak was soaked. Her breath trembled. Blood dripped from the cut on her forehead as thunder exploded above her. She didn't know she had crossed the border. She didn't know the land beneath her feet belonged to the most feared Alpha King alive. But he knew. From the balcony of his dark castle, Alpha King Kael lifted his silver eyes toward the storm, and felt the impossible. His mate had entered his territory. The same night death came hunting her. The girl who entered the forbidden land. Elena had never feared storms before, but tonight felt cursed. The road to Blackthorn village disappeared beneath rivers of mud while thunder rolled endlessly across the mountains. Her horse stumbled again, nearly throwing her into the freezing rain. "Easy," she whispered shakily, stroking the frightened animal. Another lightning strike split the sky. The horse screamed. Then bolted. Elena, too late. She crashed hard into the wet ground as the horse vanished into the forest. Pain exploded through her shoulder. Rain soaked her dress instantly while violent winds ripped through the trees around her. She tried to stand. A growl stopped her cold. Deep. Massive. Not human. Elena slowly turned toward the darkness between the trees. Two glowing golden eyes stared back at her. Then another pair appeared. And another. Her blood froze. Wolves. No, bigger than wolves. Monsters. She stumbled backward, slipping in the mud as the creatures emerged from the shadows. Massive black beasts circled her slowly, steam rising from their jaws. Elena. A voice echoed in her memory. Never enter the northern forest. That land belongs to beasts. Her father's warning. The forbidden territory. Fear consumed her chest. One beast stepped forward, larger than the others. Its silver eyes glowed unnaturally beneath the rain. The creature sniffed the air suddenly, then froze. Its ears flattened. Confusion spread across its terrifying face before it backed away. The others followed instantly. Elena stared in disbelief as the beasts disappeared into the storm. What frightened monsters! Thunder exploded again. Then she saw it. Far above the forest stood a massive castle carved into black mountains. Golden lights glowed through towering windows while storm clouds twisted around its sharp towers. It looked like the home of a king. Or a devil. But she had no choice. The storm was growing worse. And something in the forest still hunted her. Inside Moonfang Castle, Alpha King Kael stood motionless before the massive fireplace. Warriors surrounded him silently. No one dared speak when their king looked like this. His silver eyes burned brighter with every passing second. She crossed the border, he said quietly. Beta Lucian frowned. A human? Kael clenched his fist. No. His wolf growled violently inside him. Mate. Impossible. Kael had searched for years. He had nearly lost hope of ever finding the woman fate created for him. Yet tonight, during the deadliest storm in decades, he felt her. Close. Alive. Terrified. Then suddenly, pain shot through his chest. Kael's head snapped toward the forest. She's bleeding. Before anyone could respond, the Alpha King vanished into the storm. Elena reached the castle gates barely conscious. The giant iron doors towered over her like mountains. Rain poured down her trembling face as exhaustion destroyed the last of her strength. She pounded weakly against the gate. Please. No answer. Another growl echoed behind her. Closer this time. Elena turned slowly. A monstrous shadow emerged from the forest. Red eyes. Massive claws. Drool dripping from enormous fangs. The creature was twice the size of the earlier wolves. And unlike them, this one wanted to kill her. Elena backed against the gate in horror. The beast lunged. Suddenly, a gigantic silver wolf crashed into the monster from the darkness. The impact shook the ground. Elena screamed as the creatures tore into each other beneath the storm. Teeth flashed. Blood sprayed across the rain-soaked earth. The silver wolf was enormous. Powerful. Terrifying. And its glowing silver eyes locked onto hers for one impossible moment. The beast protecting her had the same eyes as the king from her nightmares. The monster attacked again. But the silver wolf ripped out its throat with brutal force. Silence followed. Only rain remained. Then the wolf transformed. Elena gasped. Bones shifted. Muscles twisted. And standing before her moments later was the most dangerously beautiful man she had ever seen. Tall. Bare-chested. Rain sliding down, powerful scars covering his body. Silver eyes glowing unnaturally in the darkness. The stranger stared at her intensely. Not like prey. Like something far more dangerous. Mine. The word slammed into Kael's mind with brutal force. Elena swayed weakly, then collapsed directly into the Alpha King's arms. The Alpha King's mate. Warmth. That was the first thing Elena felt. Not the freezing rain. Not the terror of the forest. Warmth. Soft blankets wrapped around her body while firelight flickered gently across her closed eyes. For one peaceful moment, she thought she was home again. Then the memory returned. The storm. The monsters. The silver wolf. Elena's eyes flew open. She gasped sharply and sat upright in a massive unfamiliar bed. The room around her looked like something from a royal dream. Dark wooden walls towered high above glowing fireplaces. Silver candles flickered beside enormous velvet curtains while moonlight spilled through tall windows overlooking endless mountains. But it wasn't the beauty of the room that terrified her. It was the scent. Wild forest. Rain. Wolf. Her heartbeat quickened instantly. She tried to climb out of bed, but pain shot through her shoulder. You should not move yet. The deep masculine voice froze her completely. Elena turned slowly. And saw him. The man from the storm stood near the fireplace, watching her silently. Tonight he wore black royal clothing trimmed with silver fur. His dark hair fell slightly over glowing silver eyes that looked almost inhuman beneath the firelight. He was devastatingly handsome. And absolutely terrifying. Every instinct screamed danger. You, Elena whispered. Kael stepped closer slowly. You collapsed from blood loss. Elena instantly backed against the headboard. What are you? The question hung heavily in the air. For a moment, Kael said nothing. Then, a monster, he answered quietly. Lightning flashed outside the windows. Elena's breathing trembled. She should have feared him more than anything alive. Yet strangely, she didn't. Not completely. Because when those silver eyes looked at her, she saw something unexpected beneath the darkness. Loneliness. Kael noticed her fear instantly. His wolf hated it. Mine should never fear us. The possessive thought growled through him violently. He clenched his jaw. Dangerous. This bond was already becoming dangerous. What is your name? He asked. Elena. The way her name sounded on his lips made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Kael moved toward a nearby table and handed her a silver cup. You need this. Elena hesitated before accepting it carefully. Their fingers brushed. The effect was immediate. A violent spark shot through both of them. Elena gasped softly. Kael froze. The room suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Too intimate. His wolf surged forward instantly. Mate. Kael stepped backward immediately, breathing hard. Elena stared at him in confusion. What was that? Kael looked away toward the storm outside. The moon goddess has a cruel sense of humor. Elena frowned. What does that mean? Before he could answer, the doors burst open. A beautiful woman entered the room. And the temperature instantly dropped. She was stunning. Tall, elegant, dressed in dark silver gowns with long black hair flowing over her shoulders like silk. But her beauty was cold. Sharp. Dangerous. And the moment her eyes landed on Elena, hatred flashed across her face. My king, she said softly, though her gaze never left Elena. The council is waiting. Kael's expression hardened instantly. I said no interruptions. The woman lowered her head slightly. Forgive me. Elena noticed the way she looked at Kael. Not like a servant. Like a woman who believed she belonged beside him. Kael turned back toward Elena. You are safe here. The woman's eyes darkened. Safe. No human had ever been allowed inside Moonfang Castle. Especially not inside the Alpha King's private chambers. Elena sensed the tension immediately. I should leave, she said quietly. No. Kael's response came too fast. Too possessive. Even he realized it. Silence filled the room. The dark-haired woman stared at him in disbelief. Kael slowly composed himself. The storm has not ended. You'll remain here until morning. Elena nodded nervously. The woman smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. I am Lady Selene, she said smoothly. Future Luna of Moonfang. The words struck Elena harder than expected. She didn't understand why. But suddenly, her chest hurt. Kael's jaw tightened dangerously. That decision has not been made. Selene's eyes flashed. But everyone knows. I said enough. Power exploded through the room instantly. The candles flickered violently. Even the air itself seemed to shake beneath Kael's voice. Elena stared at him in shock. Alpha power. Pure dominance. Selene immediately lowered her gaze. My apologies, Alpha. But when she looked toward Elena again, the hatred in her eyes had deepened. Then she left. The heavy doors slammed shut behind her. Silence returned. Elena swallowed nervously. She doesn't like me. Kael almost laughed. That would be an understatement. He moved toward the fireplace again, though his eyes remained fixed on Elena constantly, like he couldn't stop watching her. And honestly, Elena couldn't stop watching him either. There was something magnetic about him. Something dangerous. A pull she couldn't explain. You saved my life, she whispered. Kael's expression darkened slightly. If I had arrived seconds later, you would be dead. Elena looked down at her hands. Why did those creatures attack me? Kael's face became unreadable. Because something has changed in these lands. He walked toward the massive windows slowly. For centuries, rogue wolves remained beyond our borders. But lately, his eyes narrowed. They are gathering. Elena frowned. Why? Kael looked at her carefully. Because they are searching for something. A cold chill moved through her body. The way he said it. It sounded like a warning. Suddenly another loud growl echoed from somewhere below the castle. Elena flinched instantly. Kael noticed. And something dark stirred inside him again. No fear. Mine should never fear. He walked toward her slowly. Every instinct told Elena to move. She couldn't. Kael stopped directly beside the bed. Close enough for her to feel his heat. Close enough to smell rain and forest on his skin. His silver eyes lowered to the bandage wrapped around her shoulder. You're hurt because you entered my territory. His fingers gently brushed near the wound. Elena shivered instantly. But now, Kael whispered deeply, I cannot allow anything to happen to you. Their eyes locked. And suddenly the entire world disappeared around them. No storm. No castle. No danger. Only him. Only her. Then, a violent howl shattered the night. Kael's expression changed instantly. His wolf erupted with fury. The howl came again. Closer. And this time, Elena heard screams. Kael turned toward the window sharply. Impossible. The castle alarms suddenly exploded throughout the fortress. War horns echoed across the mountains. Warriors shouted below. Elena's heart pounded. What's happening? Kael's face became deadly. Rogues. Another howl shook the castle walls. But this time, it sounded like an army. Kael looked back at Elena. And for the first time since meeting him, she saw genuine fear in his silver eyes. They followed you here. The night the castle burned. The castle trembled beneath another deafening howl. Elena jumped from the bed as shouts erupted through the corridors outside. Heavy footsteps thundered past the chamber doors while alarm bells echoed endlessly through Moonfang Castle. Kael moved instantly. His eyes glowed brighter than before as pure alpha power rolled from his body like invisible fire. "Stay inside this room," he ordered. Elena grabbed his arm before he could leave. "Wait." The moment her fingers touched his skin, both of them froze again. That strange pull returned instantly. Stronger this time. Dangerously stronger. Kael looked down at her hand gripping his arm. His wolf surged violently beneath his skin, craving her touch in ways he could barely control. Elena's breath caught. Why did touching him feel like this? Why did her heart race whenever he looked at her? Outside, another explosion shook the castle walls. Reality crashed back between them. Kael slowly removed her hand from his arm, though his fingers lingered around hers longer than necessary. "Lock the doors after I leave," he said quietly. Then he turned and disappeared into the corridor. Elena rushed toward the massive windows immediately, and gasped. The mountains below the castle were filled with glowing red eyes. Hundreds of them. Rogues. Huge werewolves raced through the storm toward the fortress while Moonfang warriors battled them across the snowy cliffs. Fire blazed along the outer walls as arrows streaked through the darkness. It looked like war. No. It looked like slaughter. Suddenly a monstrous roar shook the air. Elena looked upward just in time to see a gigantic black wolf leap onto the castle walls. The beast was enormous. Far larger than the others. Its fur looked almost rotten beneath the rain while its glowing red eyes burned with madness. The guards attacking it died instantly. The creature ripped through them like paper. Elena stumbled backward in horror. What are those things? A loud crash exploded from somewhere inside the castle. Too close. The rogues had breached the fortress. Screams echoed below. Elena's heart pounded violently. Kael said stay here. But fear swallowed her whole. Another crash came. Then a woman screamed. Elena couldn't ignore it. Before she could stop herself, she rushed from the room. Chaos consumed Moonfang Castle. Smoke filled the hallways while warriors fought massive wolves throughout the fortress. Blood stained the marble floors as servants fled in terror. Elena froze in shock. This was madness. A wounded guard grabbed her suddenly. "You shouldn't be here." Another rogue wolf burst through a nearby window before he could continue. The guard shoved Elena away just as the creature attacked him. She screamed and ran. Claws scraped the walls behind her while the castle burned around her. She barely avoided another fighting pair crashing across the corridor. Then, a powerful hand grabbed her waist and pulled her hard against a wall. Elena gasped. Kael. Relief flooded her instantly, until she saw his face. Blood covered him. Not his own. His silver eyes glowed almost completely white now while rain and smoke clung to his dark hair. He looked less like a man, and more like the monster he claimed to be. "I told you to stay inside," he growled. "I heard screaming. You could have died." His voice shook with fury. But beneath the anger, Elena heard fear. Real fear. Kael suddenly inhaled sharply near her neck. His wolf calmed instantly beneath her scent. Mine is safe. The thought hit him hard enough to hurt. He hated this weakness already. Another explosion rocked the castle. Kael cursed under his breath. The rogues are targeting this wing. Elena frowned. Why? Kael looked at her intensely. Because of you. Fear twisted inside her chest. What do you mean? Before he could answer, a dark laugh echoed through the corridor. Slow. Cruel. Deadly. Kael immediately stepped in front of Elena. A tall man emerged from the smoke ahead. Or at least, something pretending to be a man. His eyes glowed red like fresh blood while scars covered half his face. Black veins crawled unnaturally along his neck, and the smile he wore looked completely insane. Elena, the stranger whispered. Her blood froze. How do you know my name? The man ignored her completely. Instead, he stared directly at Kael. So, he murmured darkly. The great Alpha King finally found her. Kael's body tensed instantly. You crossed my borders, Darius. The man laughed. Borders? His red eyes shifted toward Elena hungrily. She crossed first. Elena stepped backward. Every instinct screamed danger. Kael's voice became lethal. You will not touch her. Darius smiled wider. Oh, I don't want to touch her. His gaze darkened. I want to kill her. Everything stopped. Even the storm outside seemed silent for one horrifying moment. Elena stared at him in disbelief. Why? Darius slowly tilted his head. Because she carries death inside her. Kael attacked before another word could be spoken. The hallway exploded into violence. Both men shifted midair into massive wolves that crashed through the stone corridor with terrifying force. Elena screamed as claws ripped through walls and furniture around them. Kael's silver wolf slammed Darius through a pillar. But Darius only laughed. The sound was monstrous now. Half wolf. Half demon. The rogue alpha lunged again with unnatural speed, sinking his claws deep into Kael's side. Blood sprayed across the floor. Elena, run. Kael roared through the bond. Bond. The voice echoed directly inside her head. Before she could process it, Darius suddenly turned toward her. And smiled. You don't even know what you are yet, he whispered. Then he charged. Elena tried to move. Too slow. Darius reached her. But another figure suddenly appeared between them. Selene. The future Luna shoved Elena aside just as Darius struck. Claws tore through Selene's chest. Blood exploded across the corridor. Elena screamed. Kael's wolf roared with devastating fury. The Alpha King slammed into Darius with enough force to shatter the entire wall beside them. Stone exploded outward into the storm while both wolves disappeared into the darkness outside. Selene collapsed hard onto the floor. Blood spread rapidly beneath her body. Elena rushed toward her instantly. Oh God! Selene grabbed her wrist weakly. Her beautiful face had gone pale. You, she coughed painfully. You have no idea what you've brought here. Tears filled Elena's eyes. Why did you save me? Selene stared at her silently for a long moment. Then finally whispered. Because he loves you. Elena froze. The words struck harder than the storm itself. Love. Impossible. She barely knew him. Outside, another monstrous roar shook the mountains. The battle was getting closer. Selene suddenly gripped Elena's wrist tighter. Listen carefully, she whispered painfully. The rogues aren't hunting you because you're human. Fear crawled down Elena's spine. Then why? Selene's eyes filled with dread. Because you are the last blood moon heir. Lightning exploded across the sky. And somewhere outside the burning castle, Kael realized the truth too late. The secret of the blood moon. The storm raged harder than ever. Lightning split the skies above Moonfang Castle while snow and ash spiraled through the shattered halls. The fortress that once stood proud now burned beneath the fury of rogue wolves. And somewhere beyond the battlefield, Alpha King Kael was losing control. Kael crashed through the frozen forest in his wolf form, chasing Darius across the cliffs with murderous rage. Trees exploded beneath their massive bodies. Snow stained red with blood. The rogue Alpha laughed as he ran. You feel it now, don't you? Darius snarled over the wind. The blood moon has awakened. Kael lunged forward violently, slamming Darius into a stone ridge hard enough to crack the mountain. You will never touch her again. Darius coughed blood. Then smiled. That's the problem, Kael. His red eyes gleamed wickedly. You still think she belongs to you. Kael's silver wolf growled savagely. She is my mate. The forest suddenly fell silent. Even Darius looked amused by the confession. Mate, he whispered. No, she is much more dangerous than that. Kael attacked again. But this time Darius vanished into the storm itself. Only his dark laughter remained. You should ask her what happened to her family. Then he disappeared completely. Kael stood motionless beneath the storm, breathing hard, bleeding heavily, and for the first time in years, fear entered his heart. Back inside the castle, Elena sat beside Celine while healers desperately tried to stop the bleeding. The future Luna's condition worsened with every passing minute. Elena. Celine's weak voice barely rose above the chaos outside. Elena quickly leaned closer. You need to leave this place. No, Elena shook her head immediately. Not until you're safe. Celine gave a faint, painful smile. You're kind. Her eyes darkened sadly. Too kind for what's coming. One of the healers suddenly stepped back nervously. My lady, he whispered. The wound is poisoned. Celine closed her eyes briefly. She already knew. Rogue alpha claws carried corruption. Death. Elena's chest tightened painfully. This is my fault. Celine looked at her carefully. No, her voice weakened further. This began long before you were born. Elena frowned. What does blood moon heir mean? The room became silent instantly. Even the healers looked frightened. Celine slowly turned toward them. Leave us. They obeyed immediately. Once the doors closed, Celine finally spoke again. 20 years ago, there were 4 royal werewolf bloodlines. Her breathing trembled painfully. Moonfang, Nightshade, Silver Hollow, and Blood Moon. Elena listened silently. The Blood Moon line was different. Their power came from ancient moon magic stronger than any alpha alive. Celine's eyes filled with unease. They could heal. Control wolves. Even influence fate itself. Elena's pulse quickened. That sounds impossible. It was dangerous. Thunder exploded outside. Celine continued weakly. The Blood Moon royals became feared. Other alphas believed their power would eventually destroy the balance between packs. Elena slowly realized where the story was going. No. Celine nodded sadly. They were betrayed. A cold chill swept through Elena's body. All of them. Every last one. Celine looked directly into her eyes. Also, everyone believed. Elena's hands trembled. My parents. You are their daughter. The words shattered her world completely. Elena stood abruptly. That's impossible. My parents were ordinary villagers. No, Celine coughed painfully. They hid you after the massacre. Elena backed away slowly. Her entire life suddenly felt like a lie. The rogues found out you survived, Celine whispered. And now Darius wants your power. I don't have any power. Celine's gaze darkened. Not yet. Before Elena could respond, the chamber doors burst open. Kael entered. The entire room seemed to change when he appeared. Dominance. Power. Danger. Blood covered his clothes while deep wounds lined his chest and arms, but his glowing silver eyes searched only for Elena. The moment he saw she was alive, relief flashed across his face. Raw. Real. And heartbreakingly human. Elena stared at him differently now. Not just as the Alpha King, but as the man fate had tied to her. Kael walked toward her slowly. You're safe. His voice softened in a way no one else had ever heard before. Elena suddenly noticed how exhausted he looked. How heavily he breathed. How much blood he had lost. You're injured. I'll heal. But when she reached for his wounded arm, something impossible happened. Silver light exploded from Elena's hands. Kael froze instantly. The wounds on his arm began healing before their eyes. Both of them stared in shock. The glowing light vanished seconds later. Silence filled the chamber. Celine closed her eyes. It's begun. Elena stumbled backward in horror. What did I just do? Kael looked at her like she was the most extraordinary thing he had ever seen. But beneath the wonder in his eyes, there was fear too. Because now he understood why the rogues came. And why fate brought Elena into his territory during the storm. The Blood Moon heir had awakened. Suddenly a terrifying scream echoed somewhere below the castle. A guard burst through the doors. Alpha. Kael turned instantly. The warrior looked terrified. The prisoners escaped. Kael's expression darkened dangerously. What prisoners? The guard swallowed hard. The rogues captured near the eastern gate. Fear filled the room. Then the guard whispered the words that changed everything. They said the blood moon heir must die before the next full moon. Or the Alpha King will fall with her. Elena's heart stopped. Kael slowly turned toward her. And for one terrifying moment, neither of them spoke. Because deep down, they both knew the prophecy had already begun. The mate bond awakens. The castle no longer felt safe. Moonfang Fortress stood wounded beneath the storm, its shattered towers burning against the dark sky while frightened warriors guarded every corridor. The rogue attack had changed everything. Because now everyone knew who Elena truly was. The Blood Moon heir. The last survivor of the royal bloodline destroyed 20 years ago. And suddenly, every werewolf in the kingdom feared her. Elena stood alone on the balcony outside Kael's chambers, staring into the endless storm. Snow drifted through the freezing air while distant howls echoed across the mountains. Her hands trembled. Silver light still flickered faintly beneath her skin. Magic. Real magic. She looked down at her fingers in horror. What am I becoming? You are becoming what fate intended. Kael's voice came softly behind her. Elena turned. The Alpha King stood in the doorway, freshly bandaged after the battle. He wore dark royal clothing again, but exhaustion shadowed his silver eyes. Even injured, he looked powerful enough to destroy armies. Yet somehow, tonight, he looked more human too. Kael stepped onto the balcony slowly. The cold wind whipped through his dark hair as he stopped beside her. For several moments, neither spoke. Only the storm filled the silence. Finally Elena whispered, "You knew." Kael's jaw tightened slightly. "I suspected after Darius appeared. You should have told me. I wanted to protect you." Elena laughed bitterly. "Protect me?" Tears filled her eyes. "My entire life was a lie. My parents lied to me. Everyone lied to me." Kael looked at her carefully. "Your parents died protecting you." Elena's chest tightened painfully. "I don't even remember them." The confession broke something inside him. Kael had spent years drowning in violence and war, convincing himself he no longer cared about anyone. Then she arrived. And suddenly, everything hurt again. "You were only a child," he said quietly. Elena looked away toward the mountains. "Now people are dying because of me." "No." Kael's voice hardened instantly. "This war began long before you crossed my borders." Elena turned toward him slowly. "Then why does it feel like I destroyed your life?" Kael stared at her in silence. Because she had changed his life. Completely. The cold ruthless Alpha King feared across kingdoms had vanished the moment he felt her enter his territory during the storm. And that terrified him more than war ever could. "You didn't destroy anything," he said softly. "You don't know that." Kael stepped closer. Close enough for her heartbeat to quicken again. "Elena." The way he said her name made her breath catch. "You are not a curse." Their eyes locked beneath the snowfall. And suddenly the distance between them felt unbearable. The bond pulsed violently. Stronger than ever before. Kael clenched his fists. Control. He needed control. But his wolf was losing patience. "Mate. Mine. Protect her. Touch her." The possessive instincts slammed through him brutally. Elena felt it too. That invisible pull dragging her toward him. Dangerous. Addicting. Impossible to resist. "I don't understand what's happening to me," she whispered shakily. Kael's silver eyes darkened. The mate bond. Elena swallowed nervously. "What exactly does that mean?" Kael hesitated. Because explaining it meant admitting the truth he had tried desperately to avoid. "It means," his voice lowered deeply, "the moon goddess tied our souls together." Elena's heartbeat stopped. "No. It cannot be broken." She backed away slightly. "That's impossible." Kael stepped forward again. "But it's real." The storm raged harder around them. Snow swirled between their bodies. Elena's emotions spiraled wildly. "This makes no sense," she whispered. "We barely know each other." Kael's gaze burned into hers. "My wolf recognized you instantly." Elena looked away. "But you're an Alpha King. And You belong with someone like Selene. Pain flashed briefly across Kael's face. Selene never loved me. Elena blinked in surprise. Kael looked toward the storm quietly. She loved the crown. For a moment, sadness filled his eyes. Then he looked back at Elena. But you, his voice roughened. You looked at me like I was still human. Her chest tightened painfully. Because despite everything, she had. Even after seeing the monster inside him. Suddenly Kael reached toward her slowly, giving her every chance to move away. Elena didn't. His fingers gently brushed her cheek. And the mate bond exploded. A wave of heat rushed through both of them instantly. Elena gasped softly. Kael's breathing deepened dangerously. The connection between them became overwhelming. Every emotion, every heartbeat, every desire, shared. Kael lowered his forehead against hers, fighting for control. You should fear me, he whispered painfully. Elena's hands trembled against his chest. But I don't. That answer destroyed the last of his restraint. Kael kissed her. Softly at first. Almost reverently. Like he feared she might disappear. Then the bond consumed them both. Elena melted against him instantly as warmth and emotion crashed through her entire body. His arms wrapped around her possessively while snow and moonlight swirled around them. The kiss felt ancient. Fated. Like two broken souls finally finding home. Silver moonlight suddenly exploded around the balcony. The bond awakened fully. Magic spiraled through the air as glowing symbols appeared beneath Elena's skin. Kael pulled back instantly in shock. Elena. But her eyes were glowing now. Bright silver. Power surged violently through the mountains. Every wolf in Moonfang territory howled simultaneously. The blood moon heir had fully awakened. Then Elena suddenly screamed. Pain ripped through her body as visions flooded her mind. Fire. Blood. Screaming. A giant temple beneath a red moon. And a man. Standing beside her in chains. Kael. Dead. Elena collapsed hard onto the balcony floor, gasping. Kael immediately caught her. What did you see? Terror filled her eyes. The prophecy. Her voice trembled violently. I saw you die. Silence swallowed the world. Then suddenly, a black arrow shot from the darkness. Straight toward Elena's heart. Kael moved instantly. The arrow slammed deep into his shoulder instead. Blood sprayed across the snow. Elena screamed. Warriors roared below. And from the mountains beyond the castle, Darius stepped from the shadows smiling. You're running out of time, the rogue alpha called darkly. Then hundreds of glowing red eyes appeared behind him. An entire rogue army. And above them all, the full moon slowly began to rise. The Blood Moon Queen. The full moon rose like a curse above Moonfang Kingdom. Red. Massive. Unnatural. Its crimson light spread across the mountains like blood-staining snow, illuminating the rogue army surrounding the wounded castle. Hundreds of wolves howled together beneath the deadly sky. War had arrived. And fate had finally chosen its queen. Kael dropped to one knee as blood poured from the arrow buried deep in his shoulder. Elena, he breathed harshly. She caught him before he collapsed completely. Panic flooded her instantly. No, no, no. The black poison spreading through his veins terrified her more than anything she had ever seen. The rogue arrow. It was cursed. Kael gritted his teeth against the pain. Inside the castle, he ordered weakly. But Elena barely heard him. Because the moment her hands touched his wound, the blood moon power awakened again. Silver light burst violently from her palms. Wind exploded across the balcony while glowing energy wrapped around Kael's body. The poisoned wound began healing instantly beneath her trembling hands. Below the castle, every werewolf suddenly froze. Watching. Fear spread through the rogue army. Because they recognized the ancient magic. The Blood Moon Queen had returned. Darius' smile slowly disappeared. No, he whispered. Kael stared at Elena in shock. Her silver eyes glowed brighter than the moon itself now while magical symbols spread across her skin like living starlight. She looked ethereal, ancient, dangerously beautiful, and for one breathtaking moment, Kael forgot how to breathe. The bond between them pulsed like fire. Mine. Queen. Mate. Elena finally pulled her hands away, breathing hard. Kael's wound had vanished completely, but something else had changed. The moment their eyes locked, they both felt it. The final bond. Complete. Permanent. A cold laugh suddenly echoed from the mountains. Darius stepped forward beneath the red moon. You finally awakened, he called out darkly. Just like the prophecy promised. Kael slowly rose to his feet beside Elena. Every warrior in the courtyard bowed instantly. Not only to their Alpha King, but to her. Elena noticed in shock. Why are they bowing? Kael's voice lowered deeply beside her. Because they feel your power. Fear twisted inside her chest. I don't want this. Darius laughed again. You don't get a choice. The rogue Alpha's eyes darkened with hatred. 20 years ago, your family nearly destroyed every Alpha Kingdom. Elena shook her head immediately. That's not true. Oh. Darius tilted his head mockingly. Then why were they murdered? Silence hit like a blade. Kael stepped protectively in front of Elena instantly. Enough. Darius smiled coldly. You still don't know the truth, do you, Kael? The Alpha King's eyes narrowed dangerously. You knew. Her voice cracked painfully. Kael's silence answered everything. Tears filled Elena's glowing silver eyes. You knew. I found out after my father died, Kael said quickly. I never supported what happened. But your family killed mine. The pain in her voice shattered him. Kael reached toward her carefully. Elena. She stepped backward. And the mate bond screamed. Kael physically felt the distance between them like claws tearing through his chest. You lied to me too, she whispered. I was trying to protect you. From what? Tears streamed down her face now. The truth. Darius smiled in satisfaction. Exactly as planned. The Blood Moon Queen needed pain, grief, anger. Only then would her full power awaken. The rogue Alpha slowly lifted a black blade toward the sky. Finish this, he commanded. The rogue army attacked. Chaos exploded instantly. Werewolves stormed the castle walls while Moonfang warriors rushed to defend the fortress. The mountains shook beneath violent battle cries and monstrous howls. Kael turned instantly toward Elena. Get inside. But she couldn't move. Her emotions spiraled violently out of control. Betrayal. Pain. Rage. And suddenly, the moon answered her. Silver power erupted from Elena's body like an explosion. The battlefield froze. A massive wave of moonlight blasted across the mountains, throwing wolves and warriors backward like leaves in a hurricane. Everyone stared in horror. Elena hovered slightly above the snow now, glowing silver beneath the crimson moon. Not human. Not werewolf. Something far older. Something divine. Kael looked at her with awe. Elena. Her eyes met his. And for one heartbreaking moment, he saw both love and devastation inside them. Then Darius attacked. The rogue Alpha lunged toward her with the black blade raised high. Kael roared violently. Elena. But she moved first. Instinctively. Ancient power surged through her veins. Elena lifted one trembling hand. And Darius froze midair. The rogue Alpha's eyes widened in terror. Impossible. The blood moon magic wrapped around him like silver chains while the entire mountain trembled violently. Elena's voice echoed unnaturally beneath the storm. You murdered innocent people. Darius struggled helplessly. You don't understand. You destroyed lives. Silver light intensified around her. The rogue army backed away in fear. Even Kael could barely breathe beneath the sheer force of her power. Then Elena whispered the words that ended the war. No more. The mountain exploded with moonlight. A blinding silver shockwave consumed the battlefield completely. Darius screamed once. Then vanished into ash. Silence followed. Complete silence. The storm disappeared instantly. The red moon slowly faded back to silver. And one by one, the rogues bowed. Not to Kael. To her. The Blood Moon Queen. But Elena suddenly collapsed. The power vanished from her body all at once. Kael caught her before she hit the snow. Elena. Her eyes fluttered weakly. Exhaustion drained every ounce of strength from her body. Kael held her tightly against his chest. For one terrifying second, he thought he had lost her. Then her hand weakly touched his face. "You're alive," she whispered. Emotion broke across Kael's face completely. "I told you," he said hoarsely. "Nothing will take me from you." Elena smiled faintly through exhausted tears. Then quietly asked, "Even after what your family did?" Kael lowered his forehead against hers. "My family's sins end with me." The moonlight softened around them. Snow drifted gently through the silent battlefield. And before the entire kingdom, the Alpha King kissed his mate beneath the silver moon. Not as ruler and outsider. Not as alpha and human. But as two souls fate had chosen to heal a broken world together. The storm was finally over. But the legend of the Blood Moon Queen had only just begun. After crossing into the Alpha King's territory on the deadliest night of her life, Elena discovered the truth about her past, unlocked a power feared by kingdoms, and found a love strong enough to survive betrayal, war, and destiny itself. Together, Elena and Kael didn't just save Moonfang Kingdom. They changed it forever. But somewhere beyond the silent mountains, ancient enemies were already watching the rise of the Blood Moon Queen. And they were waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. So tell me, if fate chose you to rule beside the most feared Alpha King alive, would you accept the bond? Or would you run before destiny destroyed you too? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional werewolf romance adventures filled with Alpha Kings, forbidden mates, dark secrets, and powerful lunar queens. And remember, sometimes the storm that destroys your old life is the same storm that leads you to your destiny.